Welcome to Pages and Partners, a Muncie Public Library podcast. Discover the library through our history, buildings, staff, programs, and partnerships. Join us as we explore what makes Muncie Public Library an important part of our community.
Thank you for joining us for Pages and Partners, a Muncie Public Library podcast. My name is Gabby Sandefer, and I'm the Program Supervisor for Great Achievers at Muncie Public Library's Marion Hunt branch. And my guest today is Sara McKinley, the Carnegie Library Manager and MPL Archivist. Today we are going to be talking about the Carnegie Library, one of the branches of the Muncie Public Library systems. Thank you for coming on, Sara.
Thank you.
We're really happy to have you and to hear more about the Carnegie Library branch. So to get us started off, what makes this library unique compared to the other branches in our system?
Sure. So there's a couple of things that really make Carnegie unique. One of them is that the Carnegie Library building is the first library that was built for the Muncie Public Library system. So we opened in 1904. And the second thing that makes us unique is that we now no longer serve as the main branch for the system, but we serve as a specialized library. We are the Local History and Genealogy branch for the library system. So we also house not only the local history and genealogy collections, but also the archives that tell the story of Muncie Public Library, so all of our records are there. But we do offer some of the same services that our other locations offer, such as computer labs and printing services and tech help, that sort of thing. And we do have a small circulating collection, although most of our collections are just research materials. So a lot of our materials are only used in-house. And then we also offer access to databases for research.
And I will say, as someone who loves archives, I encourage people to just go check out the Carnegie branch. It is like walking into a history book. You can see the big records of Muncie that are handwritten in these massive books. It's a really neat space. You guys have a lot of neat collections that are local to Muncie and Indiana history too. Yeah. So that's really awesome. So how do you decide which books and resources to acquire for the community? Because I'm sure we have a vast history to choose from.
Yes, so a lot of what we select, because we're the Local History and Genealogy branch, a lot of what we select is obviously research materials. We sort of have a geographic scope to what we collect, so we primarily focus on Muncie and then expand that to Delaware County and then to a lesser extent East Central Indiana and the state of Indiana, and then also some areas that might have had some migration patterns that went into Indiana since we're helping people with their genealogy research. So that's one aspect of how we consider our collections. We also have to consider popular research topics. So obviously genealogy is one of the biggest ones. So we're collecting records that will help people fill in the pieces of their family tree. So we also provide access to government records like marriage records, last will and testament records, probate records, as well as newspapers, where people can look up their family obituaries, cemetery indexes, county histories, that sort of thing. Other research topics that might be popular, people really like to look at school yearbooks, to look for photographs. They might be looking for things about, the history of transportation in Indiana. So whatever those topics that we're getting a lot of requests for, those are one of the things that we use to help us sort of narrow down what our priorities might be. We also try to make sure that we're collecting things that will help people with research about underrepresented and underdocumented communities. So we do have a very diverse community, but unfortunately, as you know, the records that are typically recorded and kept throughout history don't show that diversity very often. So whenever we have a chance to sort of think outside of the box of what types of records might exist that would help fill in those gaps of knowledge, we try to prioritize that. And sometimes that may include partnerships with other community organizations. So, for example, we recently partnered with the Schaefer Chapel here in Muncie, who had
very historical building.
Yes, absolutely. And they had a lot of photographs and church membership directories, things like that. And so we partnered with them to digitize those for the collections to make them more accessible to the community.
Yeah. I've been in the Schaefer Chapel for a class when I was a Ball State student. We did a immersive learning program, and I got to see that. And there's a lot of history. I know it may be a small chapel, but boy, did you guys probably have a lot that you were able to digitize and such.
Yes, they have a very nice museum space there that's attached to the church. So I definitely recommend people go and check that out.
Yeah.
And then if they go to our website, they can keyword search or search for names of people that might be connected with that church's history and pull up some images and other documents. So that's part of what we consider for building collections. We also consider what other organizations are in the community that might also already be collecting. So here in Muncie, we have the Ball State Archives, we have Minnetrista's Museum, we have the Delaware County Historical Society, and each of our organizations may have a particular focus or may have a special collection. Minnetrista and Ball State obviously will focus on the Ball family. The Historical Society has a large collection of materials about Emily Kimbrough, who was a well-known author here in Muncie. So anytime we run across a chance for a donation from somebody in the community, or we find something that we might be able to acquire, we always take that into consideration. Is there another organization that this might be better placed at because they have existing collections like that, and they do the same for us. So there's
a
really
lot of goodwill building thing.
Yeah.
And I like that the community's working together to preserve history. You're completing, not competing. I think that's a really noble endeavor to just make sure it's like, hey, we want history preserved, whether it's better preserved in this location or this location. I think that is a very, I like that we partner with the community. Yeah. I also, on a personal note, every time, Sara can attest to this, every time I go, I look at the yearbooks. I think it's really fascinating to flip through and hold a yearbook that's 3 times my age. I just think that's really cool. And I like that collection that you guys have created. And I bet there's a lot of people from the community that, that might be one of the few, teenage pictures they have of a grandparent or something like that. So I think that's really neat. How do, or what are some of the most popular programs or events that are hosted by your particular Carnegie branch?
So as you can imagine, the history programs are something that we sort of focus on, specialize in. We have a great partnership with the local Paul Revere chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution that they use our space to offer monthly programs that the public can attend that are all, history focused. We also host author talks, which those are very popular. Authors can come in and talk about, a new book. Often those books have some sort of tie to our history, but not always. So that's a great community event. We also host book clubs at our library. Currently we have a historical fiction book club called Global Perspectives. And a neat thing about that one is they also have sort of a spin-off version of that, which is Global Perspectives at the Movies.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, so that book club program, 1 month they will be reading a book, and then the alternating months they will watch a movie that has something related to the theme of the book that they read before. So that's a nice program that we offer.
That's really neat. That I might have to look into that one. That's really, I like that they do the movie and the book. I love historical fiction. So that's a really interesting, I feel like I haven't heard of a book club like that before. So that's really fun to hear about that.
It's an interesting spin. We also do a lot of partnered programs that might not necessarily take place at Carnegie. Often they do, but we also go out into the community to present things about local history. I'm part of the Notable Women of Delaware County project, which I'm the library coordinator for that. And so there's a group of us from all of the archives who are historians that research notable women from Delaware County who, again, might not have been included in the history books, might not have been well known or celebrated, but they've certainly made an impact on our history. And so we're trying to share those stories with the community. So sometimes Carnegie hosts those, sometimes we're at other spaces. And similar to that, one of our most popular programs is the Erie Muncie program, which we have been hosting annually for 5 years now, I believe. That started sort of during COVID. It started originally on Zoom, but we've been doing that out in the public, and we usually get at least 100 people attending those every year. So we're really excited to offer those.
That's been a very popular program. And I also do want to shout out the DAR group, Daughters of the American Revolution. They have actually donated to the Great Achievers program. I mean, I think probably since I have started there as a supervisor, they will donate to our community closet, hygiene needs, and they send us some of the largest donations that we receive, and we are really grateful for that partnership. And so I just wanted to highlight the DAR group. They have provided my students many resources, such as toothbrushes, toothpaste, deodorant, hygiene products, just all sorts of things like that. So I just wanted to shout them out too. That's a wonderful group that does a lot of really great things for our community.
And that's, sort of one of the inspirations behind the name of this podcast, Pages and Partners, is we have a lot of wonderful community partners that help us in a variety of ways, and we offer our help to them. So. We are very thankful for all of our partners. We really do have some really powerful people in the community that help the library be shaped into what it is. This is going to be a little veer away from what we have been talking historically and program-wise, but, this does feed into the history of how the library operates. How has technology changed the way that your specific library operates? Yeah, so as you can imagine, digitization is huge in the world of archives. Being able to take something that's only available on a bookshelf in one place and then put it in a space online where, millions of people around the world can access it for free is huge.
Absolutely.
For historians, for genealogists. So Muncie Public Library actually started digitizing records as early as the 1990s. We created the Muncie Delaware County Digital Resource Library, sort of a mouthful to say, but we started digitizing county records like the Delaware County court records, and then land records like deeds, all of that to try to not only preserve those records longer, because obviously the more that you access a piece of paper and pull it out and expose it to light and air and everything, the faster it deteriorates. It gets harder to read over time as the letters fade. And so digitizing it helps preserve the original longer because you're not handling it as much.
Absolutely.
As well as microfilming it, because microfilm lasts for hundreds of years. But digitizing it increases, as I said, accessibility. So our database is available for free anywhere in the world, no library card required. It's both preservation and access is what we're focusing on with that.
Well, and I'm sure too, being able to digitize it probably helps with the accessibility of those documents too. If you're visually impaired or things like that, you can, when it's digitized, you can have it read to you. You can have it zoomed in and to actually view those things. So I'm sure that helps with the accessibility of those documents too for the entire public, because it might be really hard if you're trying to look at a really old obituary, that the letters are faded and stuff, to have that online where the contrast, you can change it and stuff. I'm sure that's a game changer for a lot of people.
Yeah, and the digital archives that we added more recently, where we're using a program called Content DM for things like school yearbooks, diaries, photographs, that sort of thing. You can have transcriptions of those items included.
That's really good.
Which is, like you said, a game changer, especially for people who aren't able to read the old style of handwriting. A lot of it's very difficult to decipher. So having those transcripts is very helpful with accessibility. So technology also, in addition to our own archives, we've been able to increase access to records through subscription databases. So things like Ancestry.com, MyHeritage, a lot of those genealogy databases then give our patrons access to records from all over the world, not just our local records. And so being able to search those without having to travel, hundreds of miles to go find a book is huge. It has increased searchability, and you can literally, do your research in your PJs at home if you want. But yeah, so having that has been...
It's probably gotten more people interested in genealogy that might have thought that that wasn't something that they were able to do, you know, being able to be like, oh, this is something I can actually do at home, like, and then, you know, plan a time to go into the library for extra assistance, you know, that I'm sure is really fascinating. And you guys have some really neat technology at your specific location too. I got to play with the microfilm reader once, and that was just so cool. I felt like I was in a movie, and like I was, you know, in the archives trying to search for the information I needed. You know, it was very cool. I really enjoyed reading the microfilm and looking through that. So do you have a favorite spot in the Carnegie Library or a special feature that you would like to highlight?
Yes. So if anybody has ever been into the Carnegie Library, they can probably guess what this is right away. But being under the stained glass dome upstairs is absolutely breathtaking.
It's just gorgeous. Yeah. I mean, the first time I saw it, Sarah was there the first time I saw it, and my jaw dropped, and I just looked up, and I took pictures. I was obnoxious because it's gorgeous. I mean, I haven't seen a building in Muncie like that, with that just gorgeous stained glass.
Right. We have people who come in who have never experienced it before, and of course, you know, it's always a photo opportunity every single time somebody comes in. There's actually people out there who call themselves Carnegie tourists, because Carnegie libraries have sort of a distinct look, and so there are people that will literally either travel specifically to see as many Carnegie libraries as they can, or if they go to a new town, they go looking for the Carnegie Library so they can experience that. We actually, I think the visitor who came the farthest was somebody from Scotland.
Scotland?
Yeah, she didn't come specifically to Muncie to see the Carnegie Library.
Was probably driving
she
by.
Was here.
Yeah,
she was here for some sort of conference, and she said she always has to see the Carnegie Libraries because, of course, Andrew Carnegie was a fellow Scotsman, and she was very excited because we actually have a cardboard cutout of Andrew Carnegie, and she got to have her picture taken with him in the Carnegie Library. So that was really special. And of course, our Wheeling Pike painting by J. Addis Adams that hangs in that same room.
Also a gorgeous piece. Yeah. It's really interesting, too, to see how much Muncie has developed, looking at that picture and comparing it to, like, modern day, what it looks like. It's very different.
Yes.
And I really love that stained glass, too. I think that's one of the kind of highlights. I remember a jazz event that we had maybe a year or two ago that was at the Carnegie Library, and people were able to mingle about and have snacks, and the lights were up on and it was just, the vibes were immaculate, as people would say. It was a really fun time, and there was jazz music going, so that was, I was hoping you were going to touch on that, because that's my favorite as well. So thank you for sharing that. So, you know, kind of pivoting from your favorite spot, what does a typical day look like for a library branch manager at the Carnegie Library?
Sure. So one of the things I like about my job is that no day is alike. There's a lot of variety to the work I do, but there's also a lot of variety just from the day-to-day. So as you can imagine, there's a lot of coordination and communication done by email with people out in the community as well as within the library. I might be answering research requests or questions from the community. Just in the last couple of weeks, I've been asked to do interviews for NewsLink, and I'm getting ready to do a story for a PBS station out of Bloomington.
I'm sure you were busy with our 150th coming up. I am sure everyone is like, let's get the Carnegie librarian here.
Anytime there's some sort of request about the history of Muncie or Delaware County, a lot of times I'm somebody who's at least tapped on for questions or getting involved with that. We're asked to host events out in the community, or asked if we can host an organization at our library, participating in all sorts of events. We might be asked for letters of support for other projects out in the community. So we apply for a lot of grants for the work that we do at the library. And so we often are asking for letters of support for those grants, and I like to return the favor when there's other organizations that we can help with letters of support. We get contacted by people who are looking for volunteer opportunities, requesting tours of the building. A lot of classes at Ball State like to come in, architecture students. So that's one aspect of it. And then we're always, planning programs, and I create the promotional materials for that. We also have a public meeting room at Carnegie Library that the public can request, and I help oversee the reservations for that room. I serve on a lot of committees at the library, so our administrative council, our collections committee, our content committee, employee training. So a lot of our branch managers are involved in a lot of those aspects of the library. And then collection work, I'm selecting and purchasing items for the collections, processing them, overseeing staff who are processing collections. And so, supervising staff, but we also have volunteers, we have federal work study employees, we have interns, so there's a lot of different projects going on that I have to,
lots of different hats to wear, that's for sure. Well, and I think it's funny that every library manager I have talked to in this series, when asked that question, says it's different from day to day, and I think that's something that most people who work in libraries can really relate to. Is it's kind of, I don't know what could walk in the door, know, who needs what type of assistance. Yes, you have your own projects you're working on, but we're also here to help the community, so it can change from day to day. You could get a request in for materials that completely pivots what we have been working on and stuff.
Absolutely. I think we can all relate to having that to-do list, and then what you actually do that day has nothing to do with that to-do list.
I've started doing a to-do list and then a what I've got done list, because sometimes I'll feel like, I didn't do anything. Well, actually, I did 40 other things. I just didn't get to cross off these exact things. So I relate to that 100%. I think that's really cool. And I see you are very involved. I mean, I see you at so many different meetings. I see you at so many different opportunities, both in-house and in the community. So you are very busy. That is for sure. And we are very thankful to have you. What kind of tech or digital tools does this library offer that people might not know about?
Well, you did touch on one earlier, which is the microfilm.
I felt like I was doing research in a movie.
Yes,
I felt so cool doing it.
That's one of the things. Whenever somebody comes in and they've never seen microfilm before, I said, well, have you ever watched, like a mystery show or something?
And I felt like Nancy Drew.
Yeah, exactly.
I did. I fully felt like Nancy Drew solving the mystery. It was awesome.
Right. So that's what gets people excited, because they're like, oh, that's what that is, So we do have some of the old style machines, but we have newer ones that actually are hooked to computers. So it sort of marries the old technology with the new. So people are able to adjust the images just like you can in most imaging editing programs to make things easier to read, because newspapers are one of the things that people access the most on microfilm. And then you can clip and crop articles that you want. You can scan them. You can save them to a flash drive or email them to yourself, or you can print them directly from the machine if you want hard copies. So really has changed the way the technology is to bring it into today's...
and to be able to email that to a loved one, if someone, wants a copy of their, great-grandfather's obituary, you could scan that, send it that night. That, I think, really helps with the accessibility and, able to share and utilize those tools.
And even though we provide access to databases, and some of them may have some of that information, we have found that they're not perfect. Sometimes we may have issues at the newspaper on microfilm that have not been digitized yet. And so those gaps we're able to fill in through the microfilm. Our microfilm collection actually dates back to 1837 for Muncie.
Wow.
So
and you said those microfilms last hundreds of years.
Yes. They are definitely an archival standard in terms of preserving those, because newspapers were meant to be consumed. They, as soon as you buy one, a week later it's already starting to turn yellow. The paper's not meant to last, and so being able to digitize and microfilm those is huge. We also have a lot of digital scanners for people who bring in, maybe they bring in their own photographs or their own documents or diaries from their family. We have some typical, document scanners, but we also have a self-service touchscreen station called a Scan Easy station, which not a lot of people have seen before, but it has an oversized scanner as well as a scanner that you can feed things through. But it's all touchscreen, and it actually has photo enhancement software in there. So if you have an old family photograph that's starting to fade, or it looks really dark and it's kind of hard to see, or it's got scratches on it, things like that, you can actually see a live preview on the screen of different ways to adjust that image.
That is so cool.
Yeah, and you can save it to a flash drive again, and take that with you, and you've got scanned copies of it. So.
Oh, that's cool. And then if you wanted, you could take that scanned copy to like CVS and get the photo better. If it's like, wow, that is... I really think that is a really awesome tool for people, especially, photos hold a lot of memories, and to be able to preserve that is just really wonderful. Well, Sara, I want to thank you for coming to talk with us.
Sure.
Before we go, is there anything else that you want to share or highlight or touch on?
Well, I just want to remind people that we are open and available for any type of research assistance. A lot of people pass by the Carnegie Library, and because our old historic front entrance isn't open, you have to go around the back. A lot of people forget that, yes, we are still here, available to help people, and we're open 4 days a week currently. So I would encourage people to come in, and if they've never seen the building before, definitely come in for that experience.
Oh, absolutely.
And like I said, we're happy to help people with any of their research needs, and happy to help as one of the Muncie Public Libraries.
Great. Well, thank you again, Sara, for your time and sharing about the Carnegie Library. It is one of our most, historical aspects that we have here. So thank you again for your time, and thank you all for joining us for Pages and Partners. And in the meantime, keep reading.
This has been Pages and Partners, a Muncie Public Library podcast. For more information about library events and resources, visit munpl.org.